everyone, welcome to the studio. This is demo day, and today video demo we're going to continue to work on our theme for the month, which is adding structures, man-made things to our paintings. And I want to share with you a tip that you probably know about already. I don't know if you use it, and it comes in handy not just when painting structures on a landscape, but whenever you get stuck on a painting and you just don't know what to do. You know, when you're looking at it and you don't know if you need to add anything, if you need to take anything away, if the composition is working. This tip is a winner, and I don't know why I don't use it more often. But what we're going to do today is we're going to paint a kind of complex scene, which for me it's complex because it includes several structures, right? And normally I would shy away from these kind of subjects because you have to be a little bit more precise kind of with them so that they look like structures. So usually I'm like, oh, you know, give me a tree, because I can kind of fudge the tree and make it work. But when it comes to man-made things, we have to be a little bit more accurate. So I tend to shy away from those, I admit it. And especially if I'm faced with something that looks complicated and I don't know where to begin. This is the tip, and this is what we're going to do today. So come on over to the board. This is what we're going to be painting today. It's a scene from Alaska. So there's mountains behind. It was summertime, kind of a back alley, but I was drawn to it because there was some wildflowers. Of course, anywhere there's wildflowers, I'm excited. But I also like this kind of interesting collection of buildings, and I guess these are containers, right? I actually even like the telephone wires. It's not my typical subject, but for some reason it appeals to me, and I think more than likely it's the combination of the flowers and the light on the buildings and the light on the grass. You know, like here we're in the shade, shadows, and then the light is in the distance. And I think that intrigues me. But I've been reluctant to paint it because it's structures, and I don't usually paint structures, and how would I approach them? Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to take our reference photo, and we're going to flip it upside down. And we're going to start the painting by looking at the photo upside down. Now, I'm not going to do a thumbnail, but you could very well do a thumbnail based upon your upside down scene. But we're just going to go ahead and block it in. But why would we turn this thing upside down, and how might that help us? Well, the minute you turn the thing upside down, it confuses your brain, because now your brain can't really make sense of it and really label the object. So in other words, you now are just looking at shapes, because you really have to stare at it and force your brain to think about what the shapes are. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to just simply respond to this scene as a collection of shapes. And we'll start the painting this way, and we'll take the painting to a certain point, and then we'll flip it to the right side to finish it. And I share this tip with you because not only is it helpful to approach or start a painting of a complicated subject, but as I said earlier, it is a good way to maybe make corrections to a painting or finish a painting when we're not sure what else to do. Because our brain, and we've talked about this before, wants to make things easy for us. So our thinking part of our brain will give us the shortcuts, the labels, like, oh, that's a building, oh, that's a tree. And we rely on these symbols, and then what happens is we stop really observing. And that's when we end up having things that look like a kid did it, because we're basically relying on the symbols that our brain established when we were younger. We have to short circuit our brain and kind of confuse it a little bit, and turning the photo or the painting upside down is one way to do that. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to use my pencil. This is Uart 12 by 9. I know that vertical is harder to see in the video, and I apologize for that, but I just really wanted to paint this painting. So bear with me. I know landscape mode is easier to see, but I'll be posting photos along with this demo, so you'll be able to see a little bit better. So automatically I am now just, I really like the composition here originally, but I'm now just going to be drawing in those big shapes. So here's where the horizon is, and then we have some, and I'm going to be very mindful, as hard as it is, to not describe what it is I'm painting or I'm drawing. I'm going to just say, oh, this is a shape like so. I know what it is, right? But I debated whether I even wanted to put this box in, because I wasn't sure if this box would be a distraction. I'm going to put it in the initial drawing. I might end up taking it out just for the sake of the composition. I'm not sure it's the most interesting thing. So now I have this green shape here. And right above the green shape is a little triangle shape. And that kind of goes like this. And what you're really looking for is the relationships of the shapes. So like one shape and how it relates to another. So like there's a line that ends where this other smaller green shape is. And then the angle of these white shapes, which we know are the little buildings, but I'm calling them shapes, kind of goes there. And then there's the little small shape within that shape. There's also a tree shape there. Oh, and then these telephone poles.
Lines.
What?
Lines.
Oh yeah, Michael reminded me. They're not telephone poles, they're linear shapes. Good. See? It's so easy to fall into that trap. And this is just an odd assortment of things, but there's a triangle shape on the top. And that goes like this. And then we have, this actually goes a little bit longer. We have these shapes at the very top, which we actually know to be the mountains. And it goes like that. Okay, so that's the initial drawing. The next step that I'm going to take is to block them in with a layer of pastel. Just for the simplicity of this demo, I'm going to just do a dry block in wash underpainting. And I think also I'm going to maybe stick with just the local colors that I see here, just for the simplicity. If you follow me, if you've been with me for a while, you know that typically when I am painting, I don't really go right with the local color. I try to layer with more interesting color, but I think for the sake of this upside down demo, I'm going to actually stick fairly close to local colors, and we'll see how that progresses. So I'll start, let's just start at the top. And we know that's a light area. We actually know that's the sky. And then we have the blue. And the blue, which we know to be the mountain, actually has some snow on it. But I'll just start it off as a one big simple blue shape. We'll add the snow cover. This is also kind of blue, this shape here. And then we have this green shape. And it has a lighter value at its edge. And then, I thought I had that. I tried to have oh, here it is. A collection of a variety of values. Then we have the lighter shapes in here. Well, that was the tree shape. That was kind of dark. Right up in the middle. And then we continue with the lighter area. And then we have a red linear mark there. This is the little dark area, which is the window. I'm just telling you this, but I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to tell yourself what you're seeing. Oh, this was another green shape. So I'm making a correction there. And it also has light on the edge. So this is weird, right? What's going to happen to this? I'm not sure. But I'm just looking at the shapes of these things. We'll go over here. This feels like it has a little bit more of a turquoise kind of feeling to it, and right above it is kind of a gray shape. And then it's a little bit lighter gray shape. That triangle shape, well, it could be a little bit lighter. We'll be adjusting the colors of these things. You know, this is just the preliminary block-in, where we're just looking at these things as a collection of shapes. How about the little square shape that's in the front? Remember, I'm not sure if I want to keep it in there or not, but we'll just block it in, and then we'll have an option. Alright, now we have that really nice sunlit area, which kind of comes in here, and then right in front of this white shape, and it's over here, but then it gets a little bit of a darker green. By the way, you guys are probably like, oh, this is not how we paint. This is not how you paint. What are you doing? We're having fun. We're trying something different. We're putting our brains in a different mode of operation, and we will be surprised and hopefully intrigued, maybe, by the results. Can't promise you. Oops, that's a little bit, it's a little bit darker, right? It's darker green down here, because remember we were in the shadows. So that's darker, and then it gets lighter. And there's flowers, but those are what we call icing on the cake, right? I'm getting a lot of dust, so I'm just tapping. So then we have these linear shapes, one here, and a smaller one right next to it. I'm using these hard pastels to draw those linear marks, and we'll adjust those. The lines that come from these linear shapes, which we know to be the telephone lines, those are things that we can put it in at the end. Alright, so now we have a very interesting, will you grab my camera? I want to take a picture of my upside down underpainting. Now what I'm going to do is take my pipe installation foam, or you can use any kind of blending tool, and I'm going to blend in this first layer, really very lightly. I don't want to have it disappear. Oh, thanks. But I'm doing this because I want to get rid of the light spots of the Uart paper, because it could end up being a distraction. And I kind of want to throw everything that I just put in here a little bit slightly out of focus. And then we will see where we are with it. Now I'll give you the photo. I will include the photo with this demo if you want to try this. But this technique can be used for any complicated subject, or subject that has, I'm going to take a picture of this while it's upside down. Now, what you could do at this point is you could continue to work on it upside down with your softer pastels, you know, because now that we have the block in, it's time to start layering with our pastels. Or after you do this block in the underpainting, you could turn your paper around and then work on it up right side up. Either way, you can do it. You can work as far as you possibly can with it upside down, or start right after the underpainting and flip it. And I'm going to flip it right now just so that you can see what happens. Now, can you see that? I know it's not really in the right spot. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's put the reference photo right back. All right, and now we can see, hey, that's kind of cool, right? Actually, it looks like that odd collection of buildings and telephone poles and a pathway leading through the grass. This little box thing might work. I've got some details in the flowers to lead us back. I really like the way the light is here. And it's working. So I'm gonna take a break for just a minute, and I'm gonna evaluate it, and then I'll come back and we'll finish. Okay, so while I took a quick break, Michael pointed out, he said, in this underpainting or blocking, you used a lot of colors. Normally you might just use 4 colors, like the 4 value, 1 color, 4 values, that kind of thing. Or the extremes, where I'm using a limited number of colors in the block-in stage. And that is true. That was a good observation. But the reason why I did that is because I wanted to be able to see the various structures, and if I did it by value, then I would only be doing it by dark and light, and it would be a little bit trickier. I mean, it's possible, obviously, to do it that way, but I really thought by going with the local colors that I see might be helpful, more helpful. So basically, my point about that is it's really helpful to have a variety of underpainting techniques at your disposal, and then you pick and choose the ones that work for you for whatever it is you're painting. All right, so now I'm going to get into the painting by layering with Pastel, and I'm going to be using my set of Terry Ludwig Floral Landscapes. I've been using it for some of the demos this month, just because it's a simple, limited palette that gives me a good variety of colors. So that's what I'm going to be using for this painting. And I actually might dip into these. Can you see these? These are the, I just got these, the Snowbird limited edition set that is not available, although I think it's going to come back for their sale in December. So Terry Ludwig has some limited edition sets that, well, they're limited editions. So I grabbed those because I really like the colors. So I might play with those for this painting as well. Alright, so what are we going to do? We're going to start by reinforcing the dark areas. That's how I always start my layering. And I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to start by blocking in a darker blue in this bottom area. There's not really a path, right? 'Cause this was an alley. There's storage containers and looks like a construction fence. I just like the variety of shapes and colors, but I do need to help the viewer kind of get led into the background, so I'm going to just create a darker kind of suggested pathway through this grassy area. And because this area is in the shadows, I want to darken this area. Where else is it dark? There is dark underneath the roof line of this building, and there's a dark area right in here and right about here. And if I'm going to do the box, that area is dark. I'm going to add another layer of dark. I'm going to add, how about a dark red violet, just to make the dark areas a little bit more interesting. I don't really need to put it anywhere else. And then I'm going to actually start by working my way down rather than continuing in this area, so that when the dust falls, it won't obscure a finished area. that makes sense. So I'm going to work at the top. So I'll start with the mountain shape. So I'm going to what I'm doing with the mountain, and by the way, some of you have requested mountains as a subject, and I do have a lot of mountain reference photos, so I think I'm going to be adding that into our program possibly next month or the month after. So let me know if you want to see more mountains demos. What I'm doing right now is I'm just simply looking at the mountains and seeing where the darkest areas are. And then I'm going to come back, and I'm using a blue-gray to put in those dark areas. And I'm looking at the contours of the mountains and seeing where the they're rocky with snow, and the snow comes last. But I do like the bright blue underpainting, so I'm kind of letting that peek through just a little bit. I don't want to cover it all the way up. And then we get a little bit lighter in some areas. The mountains are really not the focus of this painting, but they are an important part because it establishes the place, sets the scene. Like, where are we? We're not just in any alley. We're in an alley in a mountainous region. Happens to be Alaska. I'm not really... So that's a pale blue to start with the snow. I'm not going to paint the snow white. It's in the distance, so it has to be lighter, cooler, duller. But in some areas, it's getting a little bit more sun. We know that there's some sunlight because of the sun on these on the grass. So I can put some. I'm going to use a pale pink to put some sunlit snow. And these areas over here is more snow than not. Now I'm covering up my telephone poles right here, but that's okay. I'm going to come back and redo those. Is there bright snow on this mountain here? No. I think I added a little too much snow, so I'm going to come in with the blue and kind of cover it up a little bit more. And this actually could be a little bit darker. This middle guy. Alright, so now I want to do the sky. The sky, it was a blue sky, but it was kind of a overcast, kind of the sun's peeking out here and there. So I'm not going to use the brightest pure blue. I'm going to use kind of a dull but light gray blue. I like the turquoise of the greenish underpainting, so I'll let some of that peek through because that helps connect us to the grass. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter at the horizon, or where the sky meets the mountains. Oops. The paper is not sitting perfectly. It's kind of curling a little bit. So we have our mountains. Now we're going to come and refine our building shapes. So let's start with the green guy right here. We're going to start a little bit darker than we want to end up. And I'm looking at just the shapes. I'm going to start darker, and this one right next to it. Oh, it goes all the way over here. This guy right next to it is darker. And then I will add the lighter areas on top, and that will give me that the effect of the ridges in that structure. There's also some cool rust on it, which I could probably try to get on there. How can we indicate some of that rust? I'll just put a little bit of this. And there's little nails or something. All right, now we have the let's put in this little tree with a dark green. And a little dark green in here. Sorry, I'm not really talking as much as I usually do, but this is requiring a little more concentration. That's why I say it's easier to paint a tree than to work on these structures. So it's harder for me to be verbalizing every move I make because I'm trying to get it right. So I'm going to put that white building a little bit. I added a little blue. I want it to be a little bit kind of in the shadow because it's really getting the light on this edge. It's going to go like this. Oops. On top of the tree. Where else is this house is right in the light, so I'm going to use the brighter color on that. Where else is it really light while I'm at it? Right in here. And there's a mark like that. Now within these dark shapes there's little windows, so I'm going to use that dark blue and put in the window shape. There, I'm going to pretend there was another one right there. Where else is there a window? Right down here. And then we have the red on the roof line. Let's see. So we'll put that in, and then right next to it, then there's kind of a brick red, maybe it's a building right behind that, or it could be a chimney, I'm not sure. And then there's little specks of stuff behind there, like buildings like in the distance. I'm going to just use a duller color right there. Now we get to this side and we have our gray. I need to refine this a little bit more, and then it's just a collection of gray blue shapes, whatever this little guy, whatever this building is. And there's actually a construction screen in front of it, but I like this blue color. I'm going to just kind of leave it just the way it is. I want this roof to stand out a little bit more, so I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter area to it. The one thing about, playing with these buildings and these shapes is I'm not really trying to be exact. I'm just, you know me, I'm just trying to get the feeling for this area. It's a collection of interesting shapes and colors. Alright, so now we've got our telephone poles here, and they're different colors. One's darker than the other. One's taller than the other. So let's use this reddish brown, because we already have that in the painting. And here's what I'm going to do. Because we have that color up here, I'm going to pull it down here in this dirt so that we have sort of this visual connection of these colors. The other one next to it is a little bit lighter. I'm going to use a mauve. And then we have light on one side of it. So I'll put the mauve over there, and then really I'm going to use this kind of dull gold color to put the light on the edges of that. Alright, what about this guy? Remember, I wasn't sure about it. Do I want it if I do keep it, I don't really want it to be the star, right? I really want it to be kind of hidden in the grass. It's just a stepping stone into the distance. So I'm going to leave it pretty much just the way it is in the underpainting. And just keep it very simple. All right, now we're at the, this is a little bit funky back here. Before I move on, I don't know what I did with that shape. I might need to refine this area. We'll see. Okay, so let's continue to play with the grassy area, and I'm going to use this brighter green to paint the sunlit green area. And I really like that really bright color that I used for that layer. So I'm going to leave it. I might actually take it back out. But as I come down, we have this shadowed area here with a darker green. And this is all darker green. Let's see. Now, if I want to do this pathway, it's kind of like gravel. Well, we can make it more of a gravel path, so I'm going to use some of these purples. And because I have purple down here, it would be nice to have some purple up in the painting somewhere. But let's use this one. This is a blue-violet, so I'm going to add it up into the mountain shape, and that kind of gives me a little bit more purple in the distance. I'm looking at this, I am going to have to correct this mountain shape, make it more interesting, and I think what will help is adding this little chimney. That's going to help break up the shape a little bit more. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray some Workable Fixative on the foreground. I want to darken the foreground. I want the foreground to be darker and more mysterious so that you are drawn back into the light. So let's let that dry for just a minute. Okay. Alright, so it's dry, and why did I do that? Because I really wanted to get a little bit more textural feeling in the in this foreground area. And then when you darken and use fixative, you can get a little bit better feeling of texture. So I don't want this to be a pathway that's in your face. I really want it to be a suggested pathway. So the eye kind of just picks up on it. And I really want this area to really feel like it's in the shadows. So I'm using the darker greens down here. Because if you really want something to look like it's in the light, and you've used the lightest, brightest colors that you have, how else can you make it feel like it's in the light? Well, you can darken the areas around it. So there's two ways to go about it. So I'm using a bright green in the sunlit area, but I'm also trying to make the darker areas in the shadows a little bit more darken them more. That's what I'm trying to say. And that helps the sunlit areas look brighter. Now there's a little bit of a disconnect here with this green thing because I'm using the same greens, right? So it looks like, well, what is that? Is that grass growing there, or is it, what is it? It's a green shape. So because I'm using the same greens, I've got to decide, maybe I need to change that green a little bit. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turquoise it up a little bit. I really needed to change it so that it doesn't look too similar to the green structures, to the green grass rather. That's what I'm trying to say. And that can be a little bit lighter, and then hit it with this color, which is not really a grass color, it's actually too light. So that actually is working better. And then I'm going to put the flowers in here. Okay. So now I'm going to go over this with some of the grassy colors. And I'm going to actually filter some of the light down in here just a little bit. We started to see maybe a little filter of sunlit grass down here, and that helps connect us. Gives us a stepping stone, right, to the really brighter grass. Kind of a bridge. You could call it a bridge to the brighter grasses. Get rid of that color right there. And now, if we wanted to put some of those flowers in, and this is tricky because I need them to be very subtle. So I think I'm gonna use that, where is it? Because they're just a secondary feature, right? They're just little wildflowers down in here. So I'm using that nice periwinkle blue because it's in the shadow. They're not going to be bright, they're not going to be white, even though our brain knows that they're white flowers. So our brain tells us, oh, you need to use a light color, you need to use white. But if we did, and I'll do one just to show you. Watch what happens if I use a light color. Now all of a sudden it looks like there's sun there, but there's not sun there, so there's a disconnect. Let's put it back in the shadow. And now we set it back in the shadow. Now watch what happens if I put the brighter color in the sunlight. You see? Now it makes sense that they are lighter and warmer. Where down here, I could probably make one right here. In the transition area it works. But down here I've got to keep it a little bit cooler and bluer so that it works. I know that has nothing to do with painting a structure in the landscape, but it is a helpful tip for sunlight and shadow, so I'll go with that. Alright, so now this is leading us in here to the distance. What I need to do is now simply refine these structures. And I'm going to actually take my time and do that, and I'm going to take photos. So this will be the end of this demo today. Is going to be more of a hybrid because I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to approach it with precision because I'm to the point now where I only need to put clarity and focus right where I want you to look, not everywhere. So I really need to take my time and do that. So what I'll do is take my time. I will take photos, and if you're watching this video, be sure to see the post because I'll have the finished painting along with some extra photos at the end of that. So, flip it upside down for today's painting, for today's demo, and I think you're going to be amazed at how you can simplify a very complicated scene by just simply starting with the photo upside down. So, I will see you for the next demo, and I hope you've enjoyed this one, flipping things upside down.